You're watching HCAM TV. Unmute, Tom.
There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2020 Hopkinton Town Election Results Show. I'm HCAM News Director Tom Nappy, and today I am joined by Bob Hamilton. And shortly, we will have Connor Deegan, the Hopkinton Town Clerk, joining us to reveal this year's results of the Hopkinton Town election. The polls just closed at 8 p.m., so they are counting ballots as we speak. And we're going to stay with you until we get those results in. And despite the issues with the virus this year, and you had the mail-in voting and you had the absentee voting, we are hoping to get those results pretty quickly. But either way, we will stick with you, and we have all kinds of stuff to talk about and show you about this year's town election leading right up to the results. Bob, how are you today?
Well, I'm good. I'm anticipating the election results. It's pretty, even though there weren't a lot of contested races, it's always nice to find out who's going to be involved in town government for the next several years in some cases. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results as soon as they can be available. I know there have been times in the past where it's taken sometimes as much as 2 hours to get the results. Hopefully that won't happen tonight, Tom.
Absolutely. And obviously, there's a lot of adjustments being made in pretty much every town election this year with all the uh, interference that was caused by the virus and the typical procedure you would have in these elections. But uh, it seems that Connor Deegan and the staff at Hopkinton Town Hall know what they're doing, and they had a great plan in place, and they have been sharing the information for weeks now, and I think it'll be a smooth process. But why don't we take a look at this year's ballot? As you mentioned, Bob, there's two contested races this year. And those two contested races are the select board and the school committee, but we'll take you right through the ballot. In the Board of Selectmen race, it's a 3-year term, and we have one open seat, two candidates, and it's John Catino, who is the current vice chair of the select board, and he is running for re-election. Amy Ritterbusch is hoping to defeat Catino to grab that seat on the select board. And then in the Board of Assessors race, you have one candidate for one seat. Adam Monroe is going to get in. Board of Health, you have Liz Whittemore. She will get in. She is uncontested. Board of Library Trustees, and we interviewed both of these candidates, both very nice people who have done a lot of volunteer work. You have Mina Kaushik and Jessica McCaffrey. We had the pleasure to talk to them both. We may have a chance to show you those interviews here in our election night coverage. And then for Cemetery Commissioner, Claire Wright, running uncontested. Commissioner of Trust Funds, Mary Duggan, running uncontested. Constable, Patrick Atwell, running uncontested. Housing Authority, Darlene Hayes, running uncontested. Commissioners of Parks and Recreation, you have Laura Hanson and Lisa Jackson. They are uncontested, so they will grab those seats for a 3-year term. And then in the Planning Board race, another uncontested race, you have Jane Moran as well as Sundar Sivaraman. And that's a 5-year term. Both of those candidates are uncontested, so they will indeed grab those planning board seats. And we had the opportunity to talk to both of those candidates as well. And they certainly have a lot of knowledge and the good volunteer background that they will bring to the planning board. And then in the school committee race, you have Leah Anna Batley Rafferty. We had the opportunity to talk to her as well. And of course, we had the contested races debates, but she also took part in one of our candidate interviews on the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. And then we have Joe Markey, who is also on the Hangout Hour, and Don Ronan, 3 very qualified candidates for 2 seats and a 3-year term in that school committee race. So only two contested races this year, but some great candidates in this year's town election. And just looking through the ballot, all these candidates are pretty familiar names that have volunteered in the past in one way or the other for the town. So I think you're going to get some great people in office from this town election, Bob.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom. I'm looking forward to it. As I said, as you know, I'm the government coordinator, they call it. But I film the select board, the planning board, the Concom, the school committee. So I get an opportunity throughout the year to see these individuals working in the town boards that they've been elected to. And I'm very impressed by all the members of the boards that have take the time to get involved with the community. They have a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes where they have to collect information. They have to coordinate with a lot of other committees in town as well as town employees. And it can be a time consuming job. And it's pretty much a thankless position. You don't really get recognized for doing a good job until you're off the board. And then people can say, well, maybe they weren't so bad after all. So I have to take my hat off to all of them, putting themselves out like that so that they can try and help the town over a long period of time.
And I think the thing that you have to keep in mind is that these are volunteer positions, but they're essentially part-time jobs and sometimes even more than part-time with the hours that these volunteers put in. And I think that that's what makes the Hopkinton community so great. The fact that you have all these very qualified candidates running for town office every single year and willing to put the hours in to help the town. And the town's very successful. I mean, you got the number one safety rating. They do a great job with their schools, and it's thanks in large part to the volunteers that are willing to sacrifice so many hours of their lives to help out their community.
Yeah, I realize, and it really gets time consuming around the normal budget process when sometimes these meetings can last, the public meetings can last up till 3, 4 hours. And that really takes a toll on the individuals. But there's a lot of work that has to go in before you even get to that point. And I think we both know that this year with the COVID-19, the budget got thrown out the window for next year and everything is up in the air. And it took a long time to get direction from the state as to what the school could possibly do next year. And they still haven't finalized anything for that.
Right. And we're certainly interested to see what schools will look like next year. And no one really knows what they are going to look like next year. It's kind of a mystery at this point. And obviously, adjustments will be made depending on what happens with the virus. But right now, at least the trend of the virus in this state is looking pretty good. So we hope that continues to be the case and things can open up and the kids will be in school next year.
Yeah, we look forward to that. I know that they've gone ahead at the school department has gone ahead with the placement of those temporary classrooms out in the grounds around the Hopkins School. There'll be some more or some additional ones at the Elmwood School, and then at some point they're going to have to start the addition onto the high school. So there's a lot going on with the schools, even though the school operation itself, classrooms, et cetera, has yet to be determined.
Right, and it's really going to be a wait and see situation. I feel like right until the end of the summer, just seeing what happens with this virus. I don't think anybody knows what the future holds. I know there's some states that are starting to have issues once again, but fortunately here in Massachusetts, we're doing okay, and most of New England's doing okay. So we hope that continues to be the case. But right now, I do want to get into a pre-recorded interview that I did with Hopkinton Town Clerk Connor Deegan. They tested the ballot machines and they invited some media, some local media, to the Zoom call that they could show the testing of the ballot machines. And I had the opportunity to have some words with Connor about the procedure of testing those machines this year and about this year's town election. And so we'll get right into that right now here on live Hopkinton Town Election 2020 coverage.
Yeah, so we have the 4 machines still that are going to be used on election day, and then we keep the one spare just in case, but we still have to test it because anything that we're going to use on election day or even potentially has to be tested during this test.
Okay.
So after we test each one, we then use a seal that goes on to where the card is kept to keep the memory after it's been re-zeroed. And these ballots that we're putting through are just the test deck that I take from a mixed sample of the different ballots to basically ensure that the coding on all the ballots is read by the machine accurately.
Okay.
So, and then I fill it in mostly randomly with a couple that are just to really be kind of a baseline test.
Mm-hmm.
And so it might be that there's one that they overvoted on the races, and so that means the machine should be able to say, you've made a mistake, do you want your ballot back? And then also, just every candidate has at least one vote on the ballot, so that way we can see that each of the candidates are being read properly on the ballot. And this just really ensures that the machine is properly calibrated and as accurate as possible. But I'll tell you, this machine is, in my situations, always been even more accurate than us trying to put together the deck and tally our own counts.
Right.
They're extremely accurate. We've had times in the past where we've seen a discrepancy during a test, and it turns out it was because, while we were hand counting our own ballots, it had decided that we must have missed something or double counted something, and then we looked and compared it and recounted everything, and it's like, oh, we made the mistake and the machine was right. So blank ballot detected, so just make sure it can be returned. And then so this was one that was a blank voted ballot. It is in fact blank, and so the machine will try to say, are you sure you want to cast this? Like, did you do this accidentally?
Can the machine pick up if somebody, let's say, marks too many candidates in one of the races? Will the machine pick that up? Wow.
So what it will do is, if the machine reads that when it said choose one in a contested race, you chose 2, then what it'll do is it will say that you have an overvote on your ballot. And it will ask you, would you like to have it returned to you? And in which case you can go and you can spoil the ballot, get a fresh one, and try again. But if you say, no, I don't want to have to do that, you can also press that you want it to just cast it as is, which would cause it to then be read as a blank, because the machine will not choose for you. If the machine sees that you pick 2, it will not pick anything for you, so it'll just make it a blank.
Okay.
I'll always ask you first in case you want to try to return it, which is why it's really great and it's important to see when you're here and when you're at the polls and you are voting, to make sure that you see what it says on the screen, because it'll tell you if the ballot's successfully cast or if there's an issue with it and it needs to be given back to the voter, because we can't touch the ballot. So that's why we always tell the voters, stay here for a moment, just make sure it says that it's all set, and then you're good to go.
Right.
Oh, sure enough, we just got the overvote right as we were finished talking about it. And so sure enough, what it does here is it just says, voting issues were found, overvote. Did you already have it returned? No. So we can hit return if we wanted it back, and it spits it right back out and allows the voter to then say, I want to go and revote it and fix my mistake. But if the voter doesn't want to do that, then they can just go ahead and hit cast. It'll ask them, are you sure you want to cast it and not fix the error? And it says, yep, and there you go, it went through.
How old are these particular machines that you're using for this election?
Are brand new. These machines were just purchased last year. Town meeting was generous enough to give us the capital funds at town meeting in 2018. And so we were able to get the upgrade from the machines that we've had for at least 13 years. And so these machines now are the newer model. They have capabilities to upgrade for firmware for a few different things that might come up in the future as well. And so these ones will last us 10 to 15 years easily before we need to look at any kind of hardware replacement. Their first trial run was at the annual town election in 19, and then they got a little bit of extra practice over the course of this year because they had the special town election at the start of the year. Then a month later after that, we had the presidential primary, and now we're on to the annual town election. And then we'll have at least 2 more elections this year.
Right.
So they are definitely getting their use in. We're getting our money's worth this year.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's 50, so that is this one. So let's close that. Yep, that is successfully at 50, so we can go ahead and use the security key.
Close poll.
All right, yep, close poll. Yep. And yes, we want to close the poll.
It's closing? Poll's closing.
Yep.
No more copies.
Yes, no more copies, and then just wait to zero it before until I check.
There's number one.
Go for it. Select board matches up. Assessors, all set. Board of Health is good. Library trustees, good. Cemetery matches up. Trust funds, match. Constable, all set. Housing authority, good to go. Parks and Rec is good. Planning board is set. And school committee matches up. Okay, everything matches. So we can go ahead and utilities, and we'll re-zero it for election day.
Oh,
Yeah, the other one. Okay, and so results have been zeroed. So Russ, we can then hit power down? And yes. So now if you just tell me which one is going on which for the seals, and I will mark down the
all right, this is very important, so listen up, Connor. Okay, this is the
Yeah, you keep it closed.
administrator. That's right, administrator,
Okay, admin, what's that one?
147836.
147836.
I got small hands too. I don't have any arthritis that I know about.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Pretty good shape for shape. And the poll worker is 147830.
147830.
Correct. Okay. And,
Now we can unplug that one.
hold that second. Let's,
Yep, I grab it.
okay, now we're gonna do 3.
Yep, now we'll grab 3.
I gotta get the things out of here again.
Yeah, if you want to get those out, I'll get the machine stuff over there. Nothing is up in the air. Oh, perfect. Precinct 3.
Precinct 3.
Okay. Those. We're in ready. Russ, just to, I'll put them in, but just so you can see precinct 3-4 for precinct 3 administrator.
I got it.
Excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
Precinct 3 poll worker. Precinct 3 admin.
I like it when we can do both discs at the same time.
I know, right?
Oh. Spare disc, you know, took twice as long. Spare disc, regular disc.
Just it's in and it just goes. Oh, there we go. For some reason it was off to the side. Okay, so it is in. Plugged in. It's gonna take a moment to power up, and then we'll set the time. So Tom, this is well, it's booting out. So we have 2 disks in it. The old machines had a spare disk that was for storage of the results, but it was actually separate. We had to test each one and then take it out and put the one in for the election day. But for these, it has its backup in there at the same time, so that if for some reason one of them was to fail, it goes and defaults to the other one. So you don't lose any data, there's no hiccup on it.
That must make life a bit easier.
A little bit, yeah.
It definitely makes life a little easier, that's for sure.
So how many people are currently working in town hall right now?
I think our occupancy is set to 8. And it's pretty much priority to essential personnel, which fortunately all my election functions make me essential. Make you essential too, Russ. So when we're doing election stuff, it's actually was under one of the governor's orders when they were first shutting everything down, is that election personnel are essential.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it meant that through most of this, I've still been coming into town hall most days to work on all the prep for all this.
I just want the library. Man, that's one of my best volunteer gigs is over there. I'm senior center. All I'm doing now is.
Well,
Eleven for the president.
one of the things that's been hardest for us is just the fact that we have, the only reason we managed to not have a third, like, part-time employee or something in the office is because we have all the senior taxpayer workers who are able to come in and help out.
Oh, yeah.
But now they're not allowed
So, I mean, that, well, we usually be able to be like, okay, we can focus on some of the election stuff, and we'll have, one of the seniors in to help work on some of the dog licenses and things like that. Then,
So it's, yeah, it shouldn't be right on that one. I mean, maybe if it was, because we last did this during,
And there it is, some behind the scenes footage of the ballot machine testing. Bob, it's quite a process that they have to go through. They have to test many different things to make sure those machines are reading things right on the money.
Yeah, I can see that it takes a while to get everything set up, but I wonder how much more difficult it is wearing those masks and trying to maintain some kind of distance from each other. It gets complicated enough just trying to make the electronics work. It's almost like setting up a new computer every time you plug one in.
Right. And obviously, I think the mask is kind of a nuisance for everybody, but hey, it's keeping people safe. It's saving lives. It's preventing the spread of the virus. So you got to do what you got to do, right?
That's right. And Russ has always been a good volunteer. He's got a lot of experience. I know he's been there for a long time. So hats off to you, Russ. I know you're still working over at the election center. My wife and I went and voted this morning, and it was pretty nice. You could just walk in. They changed the doors around, they changed some of the parking spaces. So it took me a few minutes to find the right spot. But then I saw the big flag that says vote here. And being old, I realized that's the place for me to go. So then we were able to walk in and get our ballots without any problem. They had everything set up, plenty of distance between the polling stations where you filled out your ballots. Everybody got a new pen when you came in. You used that, turned it in at the end. So it was pretty well controlled. We felt comfortable doing it.
That's terrific. And yeah, I mean, I'm a Milford resident, and I went and voted in the Milford town elections recently, and it sounds very similar to what you just explained. You walk in, they point you in the direction exactly where to go, so you're not walking by too many people, and you have to wait to get in the facility, and then they tell you what number voting station to go to. They hand you the new pen, they hand you the ballot, and everything's very hands off. And I thought, at least from my experience, that it was very safe, very sanitary, and I'd imagine, based on what you just described, that it was pretty much the same for you today.
Yeah, it was. They all had their masks on. All the election workers had their mask on. Plus, they had those plastic shields up in front of them with just a little cutout at the bottom, so they could hand you the ballot through it, or the pens would come out through there, and that made it even more protected. And then when we went out to the floor where they had the booths that you could mark your ballots, each booth was separated by at least 5 or 6 feet. So there was plenty of separation. And then when you turned your ballot in, everybody was wearing their mask and they had the same shields up on the other side of the gym. And put your ballot in and it gets recorded and then you're on your way. Didn't bother to take one of my I voted stickers today, but I didn't think that was necessary.
Well, you should have wore it. You got to wear that with pride. You should be proud to vote. It, it's
Absolutely.
it's one of our great rights in this country to go out and vote.
I agree, Tom. I think it's very important that everybody get out and vote, even though you may realize that the particular individual or the question you're voting on will never go your way. But that's what this country's all about. Everybody gets their say, and then you pick the best and go with that and hope it ends up being the best. If not, you can complain about it for a while and say, see, I told you not to do that.
You can't complain if you don't vote.
That's true. That's true.
For those of you just tuning in, you are tuned in to Hopkinton town election coverage. Town Clerk Connor Deegan will be joining us as soon as the results are in. He is going to reveal them live right here on HCAM. Of course, we are doing this program through Zoom to practice the art of social distancing. And we are hoping that very soon we'll be back in the studio for sure. But having technology like this and still being able to reveal the town election results and stay on the air and interview some great people and do some fun programs, I mean, you just can't beat it. So I guess you got to be thankful for technology nowadays, right, Bob?
That's right. If it wasn't for technologies, if everybody had to go to the polling place and everybody had to stand there and fill it out by hand, and then all the ballots had to be counted by hand, it would be a long process. I'm fairly certain of that.
Oh, it certainly would. And I'm sure most of you know, but there's two contested races this year. There's two candidates running for one seat on the select board. You got John Catino up against Amy Ritterbush. And then for school committee, there are three candidates running for two seats. You got Leah Batley Rafferty, Joe Markey, and Don Ronan running for those two seats. So, of course, those are the results we are looking forward to, but just so many experienced volunteers that truly care about the community in this year's town election. And I have a feeling this election, much like, I guess, pretty much every election in Hopkinton, because there's just so many committed people to the community living throughout the town that want to help out the town government, is going to lead to some great results and some great volunteers that will really help benefit the community. But right now, we're going to get into some of the interviews that we did throughout the course of this town election period, the period where you had all the candidates out there asking for your vote, and we had many of them on the show. It was great to talk to all of them. And I guess the most amazing thing that I picked up from all the interviews we did was just how much these candidates have done for the community. It's pretty amazing. Most of them are involved in multiple committees. They're involved in multiple charitable efforts. Just great character people in this year's town election, Bob.
Well, before you roll those in, Tom, I'd just like to make sure that if Connor Deegan comes into the Zoom meeting with the results, we'll break into these interviews and bring them to you as soon as we have them.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So if we're playing an interview and Connor Deegan comes in, we know he has the results. That's right. We'll break right into the interview and get you those results. And of course, we'll come back on air here and there to keep you updated on what's going on. But right now, we are going to get into an interview we did with Board of Assessors candidate Jane Moran. She was uncontested this year. So we'll get into that interview right now. You are tuned in to the Hopkinton Town Election 2020 Results Show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we look forward to...
And welcome into the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. We are here with Jane Moran, who is a candidate for the planning board. Jane, how are you doing?
Oh, fine. Thank you for having me tonight.
Yeah, thank you for hanging out with us on the Hangout Hour. So can you talk about what made you want to run for the planning board?
Okay, so it's probably a long story. I've lived in town for a long time. I first became involved in town politics when Legacy Farms came to town, and I became an active participant in planning board, ZAC, and a lot of other town committees. And I felt like I, get to know their policies, their procedures, their, how they kind of method of operation. But I was still working full time. And after I retired, there were some issues in town that piqued my interest. And I thought, well, maybe I'll start continue to be involved again, because I never really stopped with the Legacy Farm stuff. I was really actively involved with the mitigation and, trying to continue the conversation on how we could control our growth for the town.
Mm-hmm.
And, make sure that promises were kept and things like that. So there were some changes with the planning board, and there was an opportunity, there was an opening. And I thought, well, let me just throw my name into the hat and see what happens. And so I think it was in January or February, I don't remember when it was, but there were like 7 or 8 candidates that actually requested both the planning board and the select board to have them appointed. And it was like a round robin type of a thing. And we all had to answer questions and kind of talk what we wanted to see happen with the town and the vision. And at the end of the round robin, guess what? They voted me in. So one of the questions was, if we do appoint you tonight, are you interested in running for the position? And I said, well, sure. Why am I here if I'm not going to run for this open position? So that's how that happened, and that's why I'm here now.
Terrific. So have you had any past experiences in volunteering in town office or any committees?
Okay, so yes, lots. I did a lot of volunteering with my kids when they were growing up. They're not town committees or anything, but it was all volunteering for the town. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H. In fact, I was the Boy Scout leader for Troop 1 for 9 years. But through those, all of those are all interconnected, and that you have to really be aware of what's going on in town. And especially if you're going to be a volunteer, you have to be aware. So that was that way back when. And then I think it was in 2014, there was an availability to that the select board put out an opportunity for folks to volunteer to be partners with the Upper Charles Trail Committee. So I did volunteer for that, and I've been on that committee since 2014.
Oh, very nice. And what are some of the things that you do for the Upper Charles Trails Committee?
So our charge for the Upper Charles Trail Committee, per the Board of Selectmen, is to plan, engineer, construct a Class 5 trail system similar to what the Milford Trail is, from the Milford Bike Trail, where it ends close to the border of Hopkinton, all the way through Hopkinton up to the Hopkinton, through Hopkinton to the Ashland town line. So we have been busy involving engineering studies and public meetings, trying to get consensus on what is the best possible route. And it's been challenging for our town because, unlike Milford and Holliston, where they had an established band and rail trail system, Hopkinton does not. We have 2 segments that are left in town, or maybe 3, but one was the Echo Trail, one was the Center Trail. All the rest, when we establish this trail, when we plan this route, we have to go over the river and through the woods, through wetlands, all roundabout ways. So it's actually quite challenging to get consensus from neighbors, from private property owners. And what we realized very early was that we needed to utilize as much town open space as we possibly could, because that would be the most economical. And actually, we do have a lot of open space between Milford and Ashland. And we've been able to acquire some property We've encouraged the town through CPC to purchase other properties that we envisioned that could be useful for the trail system. But it's a tedious job and it's not finished. We might be 2/3 the way done. I look at it as this way, where it's going to be, we are at the end of the day going to recommend to both the public and the select board what our recommendation is. But it's both political and economical, because the economical part comes from the state approving the plan that we present, using our engineering, using our data, using the facts that we have gathered over the years. And then we will present it through our processes to the public and finally to the select board. So there's really two big components. So our big job as an Upper Charles Trail is to recommend what we feel is the best process to go forward. And it will be up to the citizens of Hopkinton and the select board to decide if they want to take that route or not.
Wow, it sounds like there's a lot involved there.
It's huge.
Yeah, I'd imagine there's considerations such as, what trees do you have to take down to make this happen, or whose property do you have to go through?
Yep.
So I'd imagine it's a situation where you guys are trying to be as less invasive as possible on trees and property as well, right?
Correct. And also, we have to abide by the Conservation Commission's guidelines. We have to abide by the state DEP guidelines. We have to abide by scenic road guidelines. We have to be sensitive to private property owners along our route. And we are trying to be very sensitive to that so that we don't, violate or even threaten people's private property owners' rights. We've done we just did a pass. It may not be part of the Upper Charles Trail, but it's called the Campus School Connector.
Mm-hmm.
And we mitigated and negotiated with the property owners that were neighbors. Even though the town owns the property, they have every right to go through there. But we felt like we really needed to be sensitive to the private property owners who were neighbors. And so we talked to them for probably over a year, trying to come up with some sort of compromise before we felt comfortable going through. We also had to get permission from the school committee, and we had to get the kind of go ahead from the Conservation Commission before we could do any of that stuff. And then we last year applied for a grant from the state trail to do the engineering studies. So and we don't know if that's going to happen or if we're going to get it, but we felt like we did a really good job preparing the document. But now with all this coronavirus stuff going on, we haven't heard from the state yet, but we're hopeful that if it's not this year, maybe next year, we may get permission to get those engineering studies and go through, at least with the engineering studies. Now what that will allow us to do is have the state pay for the engineering studies, and that will save the town huge money.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and then we can take those engineering studies and apply it to the final product, which will be the construction piece. So it's the engineering first you have to come up with, and then you have to come back later with the construction. So it's a big project. And so that's just one piece. The total project is about 8 miles.
Wow.
And so it's about $1 million a mile. So there's no way in heck that Hopkinton will pay for $1 million a mile. Not
Right.
gonna happen. So what we have to be careful with is that we comply with all of the state regulations in our application for this grant, so that the state at the end of the day will feel comfortable paying for the grant.
Wow. So how long has all this taken you to plan out the 8 miles, would you say?
Okay, so we've been at it since about 2014, as I mentioned.
Oh, right. Okay.
I
So,
think we're probably 2/3 the way there with our planning. We still have several pieces that we either have to acquire through CPC
right.
for private property or other accommodations that we have to work for. So we don't know if this is actually going to happen at the end of the day, but that's our goal, just to see if we can continue to keep going with it and see if that happens.
But I'd imagine in the worst case, they could maybe downscale it a little bit and get something going.
And we are going to get right back into that interview in just a moment. Just a little technical snafu to work out. And it appears to be worked out. So we're going to get right back into that interview. Again, you are watching the 2020 Hopkinton Town Election Results Show. We are waiting for Connor Deegan to join us. As soon as he does, even if we're playing an interview, we'll break right in with the results of this year's Hopkinton Town election. But for now, here is more of our interview with Jane Moran.
I don't know. That's going to be up to the state at the end of the day to see if they, like I said, it's two parts. It's one part is up to the state to see if they economically will pay for it. The second
Right.
part is the political piece to see if the town actually wants to see this project go forward. And so our job as the Upper Charles Trail Committee is to present all of the facts, all the engineering studies, do our public meetings, and see what folks want.
Well, it sounds like a really cool project, and I know that Hopkinton is a big. They're a big trail town. They're big into walking, big into running. So I think it sounds like a great project, and certainly would love to see it happen at some point.
So thank you. I think the feedback that we've gotten, that a lot of people would like to be able to see something similar to the Milford Bike Trail that goes from Milford all the way to the Hopkinton State Park.
Oh yeah, that's a great trail they got going there.
It is.
Yeah.
And
Great.
we have some beautiful geography in this town that we would love to be able to share with everyone if we can accomplish it. And if everyone wants to go along with it, we'll see what folks want to do at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah, and John Ritz works with us. He's on the Hopkinton Trails Committee.
He is.
So he does a lot with them. So he's, I'm sure, big into this as well.
Yeah.
But there's some great trails in Hopkinton. Wonderful
There
place
are.
to walk around.
And so most of the trails in Hopkinton currently exist are what we like to call as a class 1, 2, or 3 type trail. It's just walk through the woods. You're walking on pine needles and stones and, stuff like that. This type of the trail that we're doing or planning for is very different in that it's a Milford Bike Trail type of assistance, where it would have to be, if the state is going to pay for it, they require that it be a hard surface. For all the
Okay. So
because
more
they're
like a
gonna-
paved surface?
it's a paved surface.
Right.
And if they're going to pay for it, they are requiring that the engineering support paved surface. So it could be that we could have stone dust in some segments, but they will only allow hard surface in other areas. And at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the engineers and to the state.
Right.
And obviously the citizens of Hopkinton, if they decide if they want to do it or not.
Well, we shall see. I know you guys are putting a lot of work into it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be something great to come out of it for sure.
Yeah.
So the point of these interviews is to allow the community to get to know the candidates a little bit. So I want to ask you, what are some of your interests? What are some of the things that you like to do in your spare time?
Oh, good grief. Well, I still work and I have a farm. And I have 9 grandchildren. So I'm just very busy.
Oh, sounds it. So how has your quarantine experience been during these last few months? And I'm sure you've
Hey, Connor, I'm
had
gonna take your mic off.
Or
Sorry about that.
It's all right, now we'll just.
all
wait for
right,
Tom.
ladies and gentlemen, we are going to break into that interview because we do have Hopkinton Town Clerk Connor Deegan joining us right now.
Live polls.
There we go. Connor, how's it going?
It's going. We're still getting a few of the write-ins and any ballots that need to be hand counted, but there's only a handful of any of those. So we have our unofficial results ready to announce for each precinct.
All right, terrific. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, so for precinct 1, for the race for the Board of Selectmen, John M. Catino, 254. Amy B. Ritterbush, 533. Write-in 2. Blanks 6. Board of Assessors, Adam R. Monroe, 632. Write-in 7. Blanks 156. Board of Health, Elizabeth Whittemore, 635. Write-in 4. Blanks 156. Library Trustees, Mina Kaushik, 633. Jessica Michelle McCaffrey, 539. Write-in 7. Blanks 411. Cemetery Commissioner Claire Wright, 591. Write-in 8. Number of blanks 196. Commissioners of Trust Funds, Mary Dugan, 636. Write-in 5, blanks 154. Constable Patrick Atwell, 631. Write-in 5, blank 159. Housing Authority Darlene Hayes, 584. Write-in 26. Blanks 185. Commissioners of Parks and Rec, Laura Hanson, 630. Lisa K. Jackson, 622. Write-in 5. Blanks 333. Planning Board, Jane Moran, 608. Sundar Sivaraman, 617. Write-in 9. Blank 356. School Committee, Leah Battler Rafferty, 488. Joseph M. Markey, 623. Don M. Ronan, 305. Write-in 8. Blank 166. Precinct 2. Board of Selectmen, John M. Catino, 227. Amy B. Ritterbush, 426. Write-ins 1. Number of blanks 3. Assessors, Adam Monroe, 502. Write-in 3. Blanks 152. Board of Health, Elizabeth Whittemore, 499. Write-in 6. Blanks 152. Library Trustees, Mina Kaushik, 478. Jessica McCaffrey, 452. Write-ins 11. Blanks 373. Cemetery Commissioner Claire Wright, 497. Write-in 10. Blanks 150. Commissioners of Trust Funds, 498 for Mary Dugan. Write-in 4. Blank 155. Constable Patrick Atwell, 492. Write-in 3.
blank 162. Housing Authority, Darlene Hayes, 446. Write-in 18. Number of blanks 193. Parks and Rec, Laura Hanson, 494. Lisa Jackson, 492. Write-in 6. Blanks 322. Planning Board, Jane Moran, 474. Sundar Savaraman, 469. Write-in 10. Blanks 361. School Committee, Leah Battler-Rafferty, 422. Joseph Markey, 453. Don M. Ronan, 286. Write-in 7. Blanks 146. Precinct 3. Board of Selectmen, John M. Catino, 257. Amy B. Ritterbush, 336. 0 write-ins, 2 blanks. Assessors, Adam Monroe, 462. Write-in 2, blanks 131. Board of Health, Elizabeth Whittemore, 465. Write-ins 3, blanks 127. Library Trustees, Mina Koshik, 434. Jessica McCaffrey, 425. Write-in 6, blank 325. Cemetery Commissioner, Claire Wright, 449. Write-in 6, number of blanks 140. Commissioners of Trust Funds, Mary Dugan, 156. Write-in 2, number of blanks 137. Constable, Patrick Atwell, 456. Write-in 5, number of blanks 134. Housing Authority, Darlene Hayes, 398. Write-in 13, number of blank 184. Parks and Rec, Laura Hanson, 464. Lisa Jackson, 451. Write-ins 5, number of blanks 270. Planning Board, Jane Moran, 427. Sundar Savaraman, 432. Write-in 2, blank 329. School Committee, Leah Battler-Rafferty, 348. Joe Markey, 416. Don Ronan, 280. Write-in 3. Number of blank votes, 143. And finally, Precinct 4. Board of Selectmen, John M. Catino, 195. Amy B. Ritterbush, 300. Write-in 1, blanks 0. Board of Assessors, Monroe, 383. Write-in 2, blanks 111. Board of Health, Elizabeth Whittemore, 384. Write-in 2, number of blanks 110. Library Trustees, Mina Koshik, 366. Jessica Michelle McCaffrey, 327. Write-in 6, blank 293. Cemetery Commission, Claire Wright, 368. Write-in 5, blanks 123. Commissioners of Trust Funds, Mary E. Dugan, 388. Write-in 5, number of blanks 103. Constable, Atwell, 375. Write-in 3, blanks 118. Housing Authority, Darlene Hayes, 345. Write-in 18, number of blanks 133. Commissioners of Parks and Recreation, Laura Hanson, 372. Lisa Jackson, 367. Write-in 5, number of blanks 248. Planning Board, Jane Moran, 346. Sundar Savaraman, 355. Write-in 5. Total votes, number of blank votes, 286. And School Committee, Leah Battler-Rafferty, 307. Joseph Markey,
334. Don Ronan, 206. Write-in 4. Number of blank 141. So that is our totals for tonight.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Connor. How'd it go at the polls today?
It was surprisingly very busy. We were pleasantly surprised to see that for a ballot that didn't have any ballot questions or anything, that the two contested races were able to get people out to the polls as well as get people to vote safely from home with mail-in voting.
Well, certainly two big contested races this year, and everybody was certainly into it. And it's good to see that people are voting, even though we have all this other stuff going on throughout the
Yep.
world.
People braved it, and we saw people in here wearing their masks. They were understanding of the process being a little bit different, and it's a little harder to hear when you have everyone wearing a mask and then plexiglass between you, but people just spoke up, and we really all got it through it together.
And how were the lines there today?
The lines really weren't that bad. They almost looked longer just because of the fact that people were spaced 6 feet apart. But we saw not too much in the way of lines. People kept moving. It was steady, and it actually worked out really well.
All right. And before you mention the results, you said there's still a few ballots that need to be counted, but for the most part, the results are in.
Yep. So there might be a couple dozen, but it's just the people who basically had mailed in a ballot, and then they might have put like an X in the bubble or something, and so the machine can't read it. So it has us now working in teams to hand count those to make sure that even though the machine couldn't read them, they still go on to our final results.
All right. And when will the official results be released?
Hopefully just a little bit later this week. We don't have any provisional ballot. We have one provisional ballot that didn't get resolved today, but I have a good feeling we'll have that one resolved probably in the morning. So I'm guessing we'll have pretty much everything done by Wednesday at the latest.
All right. Well, we know you have a long night of work still to clean up everything, so we'll let you get to it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on and revealing the results.
Sorry it was so late.
Oh, that's okay. It wasn't as late as some town elections. I think this was very good timing for the situation that's going on.
But it was all these mail-in ballots. We had a lot more of them than usual, and we had them coming in throughout the day just because people were dropping them off at town hall. And so we got everything, last ones out of the bin at 8 o'clock, and they were all run through the machines, and it just took a little longer to get all of them through.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know there was some towns that took about 3 hours after the polls closed to come up with the results. So I'll give you guys an A+ for today.
Sounds good to me. Thanks, Tom.
All right. Thanks so much, Connor. All right. You are tuned in to the Hopkinton 2020 town election results show, and you just heard it live. The results, the unofficial results of this year's Hopkinton town election, and we did record them all down, and we're going to take you through those. But Bob, I would say it's an hour or so after the polls closed. That was pretty good timing, especially when you take into consideration what's going on right now with obviously with the increase in absentee voting and mail-in voting because of the virus pandemic. As I said to Connor, I give them an A+ today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. I think that they did an excellent job. All the election volunteers did a great job. And even though it's not over, it's pretty much we've got enough votes in the pipeline to know what's happening and who's going where. And I think that I was suspecting that it would be longer than this as well or expecting. With as you said, all those write-in ballots, mail-in ballots, early voting, I didn't realize that they'll be able to get them all together and on election day, get them processed through the machines, and only have a few that may not go through the machines that'll have to be handled by individuals and be counted that way. So I'm really grateful for the work that everybody's done on this election.
Oh, absolutely. And they just did a great job dealing with all the circumstances and the tough situations. It was unbelievable how fast they got those results out. And let's take a look at those results. We have them recorded. Are all these numbers accurate? We think so for the most part, but I was recording them fast, and obviously you had a lot of results to read off, but I think we got it right for the most part. So let's take a look at the select board race. John Catino came up with 933 votes total. So Amy Ritterbusch is going to be on the select board as she took down Catino 1595 to 933. Congratulations to Amy as she wins the open select board seat. And then Board of Assessors, that was uncontested. Adam Monroe, 1,979 votes. And then, well, this is an error right here, but Liz Whittemore, she was uncontested as well. She had 2,004 votes. So she is going to get her seat as well. And then Board of Assessors, you had Mina Kaushik with 1,911 and Jessica McCaffrey with 1,743. They're both uncontested. There was 2 open seats on the Board of Assessors. And it looks like we had some issues here with the document. I'm not quite sure what happened, but the offices that you see there listed on the side somehow got messed up as I was recording the results. So I apologize for that. But the seats that were earned tonight is Amy Ritterbusch getting the select board seat, Adam Monroe getting the Board of Assessors seat, and then you had Liz Whittemore get the Board of Health seat as she was uncontested. And then for Board of Library Trustees, it was Mina Kaushik and Jessica McCaffrey. They both were uncontested, so they both get seats. And then for Cemetery Commissioner, Claire Wright was uncontested, so she gets the Cemetery Commissioner position. Board of Assessors, you had that was Commissioners of the Trust Fund, Mary Dugan. Ignore these here, the boards on the side here. I don't know how that happened. But Mary Dugan gets the Commissioner of the Trust Fund seat. And then you have Patrick Atwell getting the Constable seat. He was uncontested. Darlene Hayes getting the Housing Authority seat as she was uncontested. Laura Hanson and Lisa Jackson, they'll get those 2 open Parks and Recreation seats. And then for the Planning Board, Jane Moran and Sundar Sivaraman, they were uncontested for the Planning Board. So look at those 2 5-year Planning Board seats. And then for School Committee, this was a contested race, 2 open seats. You had Leah Batley Rafferty with 1,565 votes, Joe Markey with 1,826 votes, and Don Ronan with 1,077 votes. So the 2 winners for the school committee seats is Leah Batley Rafferty and Joseph Markey, as they are able to defeat Don Ronan and earn those school committee seats. And there you have it. Obviously, no questions on this year's ballot due to the fact that town election was postponed to September because of the virus. But the results are in, Bob, and I just think everybody should be grateful for all those that put time and effort into running. And there was a lot of great candidates this year, and it was certainly a fun town election.
Yeah, it was, Tom. I think that, and we'll get this spreadsheet corrected and we'll have it posted on the HCAM website, and we'll have some additional information when these become official. So I think it's pretty obvious as to what the results will be.
Absolutely. And of course, I'm entering those results fast, so I don't know if I dragged something and it messed up the boards. But in any case, you have your results in the 2 contested races. It was Amy Ritterbusch beating out John Catino for the select board. 1,595 votes to 933. And then in the school committee contested race, it was Joseph Markey with 1,826, Leah Batley Rafferty with 1,565, Don Ronan with 1,077. So Joseph Markey and Leah Batley Rafferty are in those two open school committee seats. And of course, we're going to get those unofficial town results posted on the HCAM website tonight. So you will be able to see where all the votes went and the unofficial town election results. And as town clerk Connor Deegan mentioned, the official ones should be out sometime early to mid next week. So we will get that posted as well. But Bob, it was fun covering this year's town election results with you. And it was an interesting year for town elections, an interesting year for everything, really. There was a lot of circumstances that people had to adjust to, but it worked out pretty well.
Well, it's not over yet, Tom. There's still a lot of time left in this year. We still have to
That's
get
very
through
true.
town meeting. The election's here. These people have to take their seats on their committees, and then they have to get to work on the budget and working to try and get the town business straightened out for the rest of the year and into next year. So it's not over yet.
Well, it's not over yet, but we look forward to what's to come. And hopefully we won't have to deal with the virus too much longer, but we'll wait and see what happens with that. But we will see you next on the Hopkinton Hangout Hour tomorrow afternoon. You can catch the Hopkinton Hangout Hour every weekday afternoon at 2 p.m. So we will talk to you tomorrow. But for now, have a good night. And thanks for watching. And we'll talk to you again soon. And congratulations to all the winners in this year's 2020 Hopkinton Town election. Take care, everybody.